ke tla shabisa ka Setswana go heletsa puo ya kajeko. Today I'm going to address you in English so that what we say today must be heard by as many people as possible in the world who do not understand the Setswana language. So let me start first by introducing this person that you are seeing today. My name is Kgafela. My surname is Kgafela. Kgafela, Kgafela, Roman 2 at the end. That Roman 2 is a title. I am Kgosi Kgolo Kgafela II, which translates to King Kgafela II. I'm king of Bakgatla traditional community, which resides in 2 countries. Botswana, the capital is Mochudi. And in South Africa, Northwest Province, the capital is our village in Northwest, in Soulsport, called Muruleng. Muruleng. Get that word correctly because I'm going to be referring to it time and again. Muruleng is our capital in the Northwest Province. And I'm the king of this tribe, which occupies these 2 territories divided by a colonial border. I myself was born in the United States of America in 1971. I'm a citizen of Botswana and I'm a citizen of South Africa. Our tribe is one of the wealthiest tribes in Southern Africa. Our wealth resides in mineral deposits that lie under our land, our farms in the Northwest Province. These minerals are mostly platinum, chrome, copper, iron, and even minerals that are called minerals for the future, such as vanadium and many others. We have it all in our land. And that's why we say we are one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest tribe, traditional community in Southern Africa. This land that we own in the Northwest Province is in farms. It's farmland which has title deeds. Farmland, just like any farmland that may be owned by any other farmer who has a title deed to his land. How this land was acquired is a matter of historical and legal record. It's there in the history books. One of the history books I can refer to you is one written by Professor Fred Morton, How Rustling Became an Art. It tells you the story of how our forefathers acquired these farms, partly by wars in the 1800s, but most significantly by purchase. During the difficult times when Paul Kruger was terrorizing everyone in the Transvaal, our forefathers had the wisdom to outsmart him in purchasing our land back from him. They paid money to acquire Soulsport Farm, which is where Muruleng is housed. They paid money to acquire all the other farms which house our villages in the Northwest Province, and which is ground for this wealth of minerals. Those farms were bought just as any party can buy a farm. They are our inheritance. Our forefathers left these farms to be our inheritance, as much as somebody else's forefather would leave them a watch, a vehicle, or whatever. Our forefathers left us this land. It is our inheritance, and no one in this world is entitled to take it away from us by any justification whatsoever. No one is entitled to steal our inheritance. That being the case, having explained to you the source of our wealth and how our farms were acquired and the legal status, as I say to you, that we have title deeds to these farms. So be that as it may, we have a massive problem. We have a massive problem in South Africa. Our tribe specifically faces a massive dilemma. This problem, to put it into context, is this. Notwithstanding this wealth that I have explained to you, we as a tribe don't have access to it. The tribe does not have access to it, and I, as the king, the supreme monarch, I too don't have access to our wealth. We all live in poverty as beggars, despite all this wealth that I've shown you. Other people are eating our wealth, and in the process of eating it, they are fighting amongst themselves, and everybody is fighting everybody. There's so much conflict in my land. There's so much conflict in my villages as a result of the mining activities that take place in an environment of utter lawlessness. That is the problem. The problem is that we don't have access to our wealth because some people are denying us access to that wealth. Who are these people? Who are these people? Foremost is the African National Congress, the ANC. The ANC is stealing from my tribe, and they're stealing millions, billions, almost coming to trillions now. And this has been going on for the past 15 years. I migrated to South Africa from Botswana on the 21st May 2012 because the tribe approached me in Muchudi with a complaint that I must come and assist them to deal with this dilemma, that there are people stealing from them and they require intervention of the monarch sitting in Muchudi to deal with our problems. So that is the problem. The ANC is stealing from Bakgatla. In a short while, I'll explain to you how that is happening and give you the evidence. But to give you an idea is this. The ANC has formed, aided, abetted, and supported 3 mafia groups that are at the forefront of stealing from us. Let's call them for the sake of discussion. There's the Murule Mafia. Muruleng is the capital. We have people there who are occupying the village, who are occupying the tribal office, who are occupying our land, who are occupying our assets against the law. And when I say against the law, I mean it against the law, against existing court judgments, against existing Commission of Inquiry reports, and so forth that I will elaborate upon in due course. So there's the Murule Mafia, aided, supported, abetted by the African National Congress. And there's a second mafia, which in Northwest they call the Klerksdorp Mafia. These are blokes from Klerksdorp and other places who are occupying the Premier's office, ANC deployees, occupying the Premier's office, occupying COCTA, that Office of Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs. Yes, People have been deployed to these offices, and they are mafia, organized by the African National Congress, because it is their deployees. Then there's the third, which I call Litulia House Mafia. These are blokes from the Eastern Cape and other places who control Litulia House. And they've told themselves that they have a right or an entitlement to bully everybody in South Africa because they control government. They are now deep with their teeth and to their eyeballs in Bakgatla affairs, stealing from Bakgatla. So have in mind these three mafia groups and picture this allegory that I'm going to set forth for you to understand how this theft and robbery of Bakgatla proceeds. Consider this allegory for a moment. There's a gang of robbers, maybe 5 or 6, who decided they're going to rob a bank. One of them is a driver. He's going to drive the getaway vehicle. The other is a doctor. He stays back at the den so that he can patch up his comrades when they return from the assignment, if any is injured. Then maybe the other is an insider in the bank, a bank teller or a bank manager who knows the codes and knows where the vaults are, how much money is there, and how much gold and other jewelry is there. And they work together. And maybe 3 others are just ex-military people who can operate the gun. They go and they rob a bank. They leave with bags of loot. They don't know how much it is in those bags, but they've taken money, gold, jewelry from the bank. And as they get away, they shoot a security guard. But nonetheless, they get away. One of them is injured by the security guard. And they get to that den and they get patched up. They count the loot and they divide amongst themselves. Maybe the bank teller, the bank manager who was an insider gets 200,000. The getaway driver, maybe they give him 500,000, and the others maybe take 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, and so forth. And maybe amongst them, there's a mastermind who gets the largest share. When they are arrested for that robbery and for the murder of that guard, they are treated as joint criminals with a common purpose. At criminal law, it's called common purpose. At civil law, they're called joint tortfeasors, collaborators in tort. So when they finally stand trial, they'll be convicted of robbery, all of them, and they'll be convicted of murder. And in a country which has capital punishment, they'll be hanged, all of them, irrespective that one was just a driver, the other was just a teller. Because that is the law. It doesn't matter whether one received 200,000, the other received just 5 shillings, and the other one received a bulk of the share of what they have stolen. They are one gang of robbers. And the law, criminal law and civil law, treats them as such. This is what is happening to Bakgatla. We have a gang that is robbing us for the past 15 years and still carrying on today. The mastermind is Murule Mafia, whereas on the sides, everything is aided, abetted, and supported by the African National Congress from Litulia House. Murule Mafia, we've been through them. We've litigated with them at court since 2012. We've litigated with them through Judicial Commission of Inquiry. We've litigated with them even afterwards. And in all the processes that we have gone through with them, we have had documentary forensic evidence of what is being stolen by this gang. In 2012, we had commissioned and concluded a forensic investigation by a reputable firm of auditors called BDO Spencer. They delivered a report which is as valid today as it was in 2012. And that report showed that there was a lot of trouble going on within my tribe at our tribal office in Moruleng, that the then appointed Kgosi, John Molefe Pilane, who was appointed by my father during his reign as the king. My father appointed him to be caretaker of the tribe in South Africa in 1996. And since then, the tribe has been complaining about his maladministration of their affairs. So the BDO report confirmed the tribe's complaint to me in Muchudi. They complained to me in Muchudi in 2008. And in 2012, we finally had the evidence that vindicated the complainants. And the vindication lay and still lies in the evidence that is there in the BDO report, indicating that the then regent, John Molefe Pilane, and his traditional council, and the rest of the tortfeasors with him, were stealing millions and millions and millions of rand from Bakgatla, exploiting our inheritance to steal. The BDO forensic made certain recommendations that this and that must take place in order to remedy the state of affairs. The government, that is the Premier's office, Cocta office, the police, every facet of government in Northwest has had a copy of the BDO report since 2012 and has been prompted many, many times to carry out their own governmental forensic investigation and to assist in the implementation of the recommendations of the BDO report. But they've done nothing since 2012 to do that. Thus, the robbery has continued unabated. At the time in 2012, the robbery was in billions. I beg your pardon, it was millions then. And the evidence is there for anybody to see for themselves. We will post the BDO report in our Facebook page so that anybody interested can confirm for themselves that we speak the truth when we say that by then in 2012, this gang was stealing millions from us. So that's the first piece of evidence I'll put on the table as evidence of the robbery that I'm explaining. The second piece of evidence is that in 2016, when the tribe was so frustrated at the government not assisting them to bring this morass to an end, the tribe put pressure on the Premier. The Premier then was Supra Mahuma Pelo. But then we had also emerged from a High Court ruling before the then Judge President Leo, who made a ruling that all the disputes that we had before her, before the Mafikeng High Court, as we tried to unravel this morass and rid ourselves of the then regent, John Pilane, Judge Leo directed that all those issues that were raised before her must be decided by a judicial commission of inquiry. That was in 2014. And in 2016, the then Premier, Supra Mahuma Pelo, acceded to that demand and pressure by the tribe. He commissioned that judicial commission of inquiry, which was called Baloyi Judicial Commission of Inquiry. Now, that commission was set up to resolve all Bakgatla disputes. as they were presented before Judge President Liu. The disputes concerned disputes over the traditional leadership, Bokgosi. The dispute also revolve around maladministration. Those were the two major topics: maladministration and Bokgosi, traditional leadership. We went on with that commission from 2016 up to 2019, when the commission finally delivered its findings and recommendations. The recommendations as regards traditional leadership, Bokgosi, the recommendations vindicated the position of Bakgatla traditional law as regards traditional leadership. And in summary, to summarize it all, you will have an opportunity to read it yourself, but to summarize it all, the commission made a finding that Bakgatla Kgafela traditional community in Botswana and South Africa remain one tribe, despite the fact that there's a border in between, but we are one tribe, indivisible. Number two, the commission made a finding that this one tribe that exists in two countries, by its traditional law, is governed by a monarch, who in Botswana we call Kgosi Kgolo, meaning the great chief. But effectively it's king, paramount chief king, because in South Africa, paramount chiefs were designated kings as a matter of law, arising from Nhlapo Commission. That's what the commission found. The commission found that the tribe is one unit, indivisible despite the border. And that is so in terms of Bakgatla custom, and it is so in terms of the South African Constitution. Thirdly, that the monarch, being myself, is the only individual in the whole world who has a power to appoint a Kgosi in South Africa, a caretaker in South Africa. I'm among the only person in the whole world who can appoint a Kgosi and can remove a Kgosi from the seat of Kgosi. This is what the commission found, and the commission made this finding on the back of a whole series of case law starting in 1996. There's so many judgments on Bakgatla affairs which confirm this position of Bakgatla customary traditional law as dovetailed into the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. So that is the law. That's what the commission found. There's much more which may be of interest to you if you read that commission concerning Bokgosi, but those are the salient points. As regards maladministration, what I call robbery of Bakgatla, the commission unraveled a lot of evidence of no more millions. Here now we're talking billions and billions and billions and billions, segregated in batches of millions. 300 million there, 500 million there, 950 million there, 1.2 billion there, and so forth and so forth. The evidence is riddled all over that commission report about the robbery of Bakgatla by this mafia group. It's billions that is being stolen from us. Oh, by the way, the commission also, with the benefit of evidence from Professor Fred Morton, the commission also vindicated and validated the ownership of our land, as I've explained it to you at the beginning. It's there in the commission report. The commission also made a finding that the government state parties, that is the Premier's office and COCTA, have not been supporting the tribe in its various complaints about maladministration of its property. In fact, they have deliberately supported John Molefe Pilani in his maladministration of Bakgatla affairs, in his robbery of Bakgatla. Yes, the Premier's offices, they turned a blind eye to the whole thing because they were receiving instructions from the Tulia House Mafia to allow the gravy train of robbery to carry on. So this is what the commission found, that they have not been supporting the tribe despite complaints and complaints including complaints by myself way back in 2012 when I asked the government of Northwest to institute a forensic investigation. It's there in the report. So the commission made recommendations that, number one, to bring order to Bakgatla affairs, an administrator must be appointed, and simultaneous with an administrator being appointed, the Premier must appoint a forensic investigation to trace where exactly is this millions and millions and billions going. Because the commission by itself couldn't find where that money is going to. So the commission directed the Premier to commission a forensic investigation to support the administrator so that the Premier can give us answers as to where Bakgatla money is going to. The then Premier who took over after Superman Mahumapelo, Professor Job Mokgoro, he signed for that commission that he accepts all the recommendations, and he held a public meeting to announce that his office was going to implement all the recommendations. And indeed, Professor Mokgoro appointed an administrator. His name is Phineas Tsiye. Indeed, Professor Mokgoro appointed a forensic team of investigators, and they started work. There was so much resistance to Mokgoro's actions, political resistance, to a point that he was forced to resign. The ANC forced Professor Mokgoro to resign from his office so that they could bring replacements who would carry out instructions from Luthuli House not to implement the Baloyi report and not to carry on with the forensic investigations. Consistently, since Job Mokgoro left, consistently, we've had resistance after resistance from the Premier's office, from COGTA, on matters of implementing Baloyi report, on matters of empowering the administrator to do his work, on matters of empowering the forensic investigation to do its work. This resistance has gone on and on to a point where ultimately the Premier's office and COGTA effectively they fired the administrator. Effectively they fired the forensic investigation. And ultimately, as recent as January this year, they finally fired the Kgosi who I had appointed. I had appointed a Kgosi who is my uncle. His name is Ramono Pilane. We came from Botswana together in 2012 to carry out the assignment of the tribe. We've been together, and in 2020, in the process of implementing our role recommended in Baloyi Commission report recommendations, I appointed him and made sure that John Molefe Pilane is formally removed by withdrawal of his certificate by Professor Job Mokgoro. So Professor Job Mokgoro did do that. He withdrew John Molefe Pilane's recognition certificate as Kgosi and appointed my uncle Ramono Pilane. That's why Job Mokgoro was fired by the ANC. So where we are right now is that they have fired the administrator, they have fired the forensic investigation, and now finally they removed Ramono Pilane and replaced him with Nyalala Pilane. Totally against the law. Us and Ramono, we have our own issues, family issues, which are none of the Premier's business, none of ANC's business. But this is what they did. They fired the administrator, they fired the forensic investigation, and recently they removed our Kgosi and appointed their own person, John Molefe Pilane, against the law. The law is very clear. When one administrative executive makes a decision, as Job Mokgoro made a decision to withdraw John Molefepilane's certificate of recognition as Kgosi. Once he has done that, his successors, that is, premiers who come after Job Mokgoro, cannot willy-nilly reinstate John Molefepilane without a court order. That's the law. And they cannot reinstate John Molefepilane without my permission. And I've not given them permission to do that. Fortunately, where we stand right now is that Ramono Pianlenzo obtained an interdict this past Monday, 3 days ago, against the Premier and John Molefepilane to put this whole train of madness to a halt. The proceedings for the interdict are ongoing, but we have that interdict in place that temporarily puts a stop to this madness that is being done to our tribe by these three mafia gangs. So as we stand today, John Molefepilane is interdicted from holding himself out as Kgosi, despite the fact that the Premier in January this year issued out a gazette saying that they are now recognizing that and reinstating him, reinstating a disgraced criminal back to the seat whence he was removed because he has been oppressing the tribe. So this is where we stand. There's a consistent, deliberate thwarting, frustration of implementing Baloyi Judicial Commission of Inquiry recommendations. Firstly, by firing the administrator after years of not giving him support. Secondly, by firing the forensic investigation. And now, by removing the Kgosi and reinstating John Pilane. Why is all this happening? All this is happening for the very reason that I have indicated. It's happening so that the robbery of Bakgatla may proceed unabated. A robbery that is orchestrated from Lithuli House. So that is the problem, ladies and gentlemen, that we are having amongst Bakgatla. And that is the evidence. When I say to you that ANC is stealing from Bakgatla, don't ask me how much have they stolen. Don't ask me how much they've stolen, because if you ask me that question, I'll put before you the BDO report, Spencer, and say, calculate how much has been stolen there. I'll put before you the Baloyi Judicial Commission of Inquiry report and ask you how much has been stolen there. And we ain't finished yet, because more and more has been stolen since Baloyi recommendation. And more is still being stolen today as we speak. The theft is carrying on. Murule Mafia is collecting dividends due to Bakgatla from all the mines. They're collecting money due to Bakgatla from every source that exists from our lands. And currently, they've opened up a front that had been closed temporarily at PPM mine. PPM mine, there's a lot of things happening there, Bakgatla Bethu, which is very worrying. Grand theft of a very high scale being carried about by these three mafia groups at PPM. The reason why the ANC has been so anxious to impose John Pilane upon us, to the extent of even reinstating him in January this year against the law, is so that via their certificate of recognition, they may have legitimacy to steal from Bakgatla. So this is what is happening. A gang of robbers looting poor people of their inheritance left for them by their forefathers. There's a topic currently in South Africa, which is rocking South Africa and the world, about this new legislation about land expropriation without compensation. This topic seems to center upon an apprehension that this legislation is intended to take away white people's property, the Afrikaners' property. But that is a smokescreen. That legislation is not intended specifically to take white people's land. That is a smokescreen, a distraction, a red herring. The reality on the ground is that that legislation is intended to take our land because it is rich in minerals. It is intended to take black tribes' land who occupy land around the platinum belt in the Northwest. We being at the forefront because our land holds the richest reserves. But other tribes around the platinum belt, they have similar experiences to us, although expressed and experienced differently. But I'm aware that all the tribes in Northwest around the platinum belt, they have a problem with the ANC stealing from them. So this legislation is not about white people's land, although it may have something to do with white people's land in the long run. It's about our land. Currently, whose land is being stolen? Whose land is being expropriated without compensation? It's our land, Bakgatla land. It's been taken away from us, and this has been going on for some time without any compensation. We are enduring the wrath of that legislation even before it was promulgated. So if we were to stand, two people, I here, Bakgatla, and an Afrikaner man on the side who has an apprehension that his land is likely to be taken, I would say to him that you are fortunate that yours is an apprehension. Mine is a reality. It's a reality which we feel every day, and it pains us greatly. So let's be clear that this debate that's going on, land expropriation without compensation, focus must now be on us, the black tribes, who are suffering this injustice without anybody howling out in our favor. It's not a black on white issue. No. It's a black on black issue. Our own black brothers are stealing from us. Our own black brothers are perpetuating a grave injustice against us. It's not an Afrikaner who's perpetuating this injustice upon us. It's our own black brothers. And it's about time the world sees these things in their proper perspective. I've heard, in passing, various leaders of the world lamenting about the terrible things that are happening in South Africa. I can say to you that those leaders are telling the truth. Very terrible things are happening in South Africa. And we, Bakgatla, we are in the receiving end of it. The injustice is just too painful and too heavy to endure any longer. So what's going on is exactly that. We have a robbery of the century, a scandal of the century. Another very, very terrible thing that goes on side by side with that is this. The ANC has effectively, they've confiscated my throne. Yes, the ANC has effectively confiscated my throne and given it to John, the puppet. And they've been doing that since 2012. But have now gone open about it. They've confiscated my throne and they've given it to John. They go to our tribal office and proclaim that John is the supreme leader of Bakgatla. Yes, Fikile Mbalule has gone to our tribal office several times during the time when the administrator's term was in operation and during the time when Kgosi Ramono's term was in operation. During the time when John Pilane had been removed from Bukhosi, during a time when there was and still is a High Court order from Mafikeng of the 3rd September 2020, which specifically states that John Pilane must hand over the keys of the tribal office and tribal property to the administrator and to the Kgosi, and that he must not interfere with the functions of the Kgosi and administrator. John has violated all these interdicts and all these court orders because the ANC says he must do that. They support him in that. Fikile Mbalule goes to our tribal office under these circumstances I've described. He goes to our stadium, holds a political rally, an ANC rally at our stadium last year on the 20th of April, 2024. The law is very clear that political parties are not entitled to utilize tribal property for political ends. It's there in legislation. But besides that, Fikile Mbalule goes to our stadium against the administrator's authority, against my authority, and he holds a rally there where he proclaims John Pilane to be the Kgosi of Bakgatla. In this environment of court orders, Judicial Commission of Inquiry reports, and so forth. How bizarre can that be? That a political party with impunity aids and abets and supports the violation of South Africa law. And we are expected to keep quiet about it. No, we are not going to keep quiet about it. But this is what is happening. They have confiscated my throne and given it to John Pilane. And in so doing, they force us to litigate in the law courts to restore order. We've been litigating with the government of Northwest for the past 10 to 15 years. The cases that are recorded in Mafikeng High Court are so many. So when these world leaders say that the ANC is confiscating the people's property, it's true. They've confiscated my throne and they're confiscating our property, our farms, so that they can steal our minerals. Morule Mafia have expelled me from my village, aided and abetted by the African National Congress. They burnt my house in Morule. They expelled me from the tribal office by violence of a mob. And then they burned my house in Moruleng, and they burned my vehicle that was in that house. They have expelled the Kgosi who had appointed Ramono. In the same way, they smoked him out of the house in Moruleng. Therefore, the authentic traditional leadership of Bakgatla doesn't live amongst Bakgatla in Moruleng. The situation in my tribe in Moruleng has gotten so dangerous, so untenable, that I've had to leave not only Moruleng, but the Northwest province. I don't live in Northwest anymore and cannot go back to Northwest because of the dangerous situation which these three mafia groups have established. Our people are dying, they are being murdered by this mafia. On the 15th of August, 2023, one of our colleagues who worked closely with Ramono, his name was Jomo Kirumeng. He was murdered, shot 16 to 18 times. The assassin literally emptied his magazine in this poor man's body in front of his wife and his mother. The assassins were not even wearing any coverings on their faces. And there are people who are known in the village. And their employers are also known. Bakgatla know who assigned those assassins to murder Jomo Girumeng. Investigations started, investigations ended in mid-air. There's a consistent demand that the murderers of Jomo Girumeng must be brought to book. But that's not happening. The same mafia murdered another colleague working in the office of Kgosi. His name was Gilios Molefe. Strangely, it happened also on the 15th of August, 1996. Other people are being murdered in Bakgatla land, being murdered by this mafia group. And there's been a growing impunity to a point with that law-abiding citizens now must fall to their devices as to how to avoid future murders. So much to a point with that I myself have found it wise to leave that environment totally. So this is what the stakes are. Imagine the king of a community being expelled from his village with violence, and his Kgosi, his appointed Kgosi, also being expelled from the village with violence, and the government doing nothing about it. Isn't it strange? To me, it's circumstantial evidence adding to exactly what we are saying, that it's one gang of robbers aiding and abetting each other on a common purpose. Since the current premier issued out a government gazette saying that he is reinstating John Pilani in January, our tribe has been in enormous pain and fear. Enormous pain and fear. Because the criminal is brought back with legitimacy of government. Thanks for the current interdict, which came on Monday. But the tribe still remains in fear because people are being killed. The example of Jomo Girumeng is only one. There are many other people who have been killed. And Bakgatla money is being used to bribe everyone. Bakgatla money is being used to bring divisions within the tribe, from the top families right down to the ordinary man on the streets. ANC divides us from the top families right down to the men in the streets. And Bakgatla money is being used to finance that campaign of division. Divide and rule, divide and rule, divide and rule. It's the same thing. It used to be done by a white man in the colonial times, but now it's being done by a black man to a fellow black man. This is the tragedy that I wish to share with you. And worst of all, and this is really concerning, after the premier reinstated John Pilani, the commander-in-chief of the South African Defence Force then deployed South African National Defence Force to Moruleng in order to give support to John Pilani in his newly attained authority. Yes, as we speak, South African National Defence Force is occupying my village, occupying my tribal office without my permission, occupying various other properties in my village without permission, and causing a lot of anxiety amongst the tribe. Imagine yourself how it would feel like when all of a sudden the army is in your village walking about. Yes, they've been deployed by the commander-in-chief. My lawyer has written the commander-in-chief a letter, which was received yesterday asking the Commander-in-Chief to explain himself as to what law did he rely upon to deploy South African National Defence Force into my village to hover around and give support to John Molefe Pilane when he is not a Kgosi, and when there are court orders which say that he must not hold himself as a Kgosi. The most recent court order being 3 days ago, whereas others have been in existence for years now. Interdict after interdict. There are 4 interdicts today as we speak against John Pilane and the Morule Mafia. 4 interdicts. All of which they violate with impunity because they have support of Lethuli House Mafia. So the Commander-in-Chief must write back to my lawyer and explain himself why he has deployed the army into my village after they have expelled me from my village and expropriated my throne to give it to John Pilane. We are waiting for an explanation. Meanwhile, the question is, what are you going to do about this tragedy, this tragic injustice which our people are enduring at the hands of the ANC? What are you going to do about it? What I can do is only matters that are within my power, within the law. Within the law. We are currently, and when I say we, I mean myself as the king and the royal family of Bakgatla Kgafela. It is my family. We are preparing an urgent application, most likely to be filed at the Constitutional Court by direct access. But we'll decide that at the time of filing, where we take it. But the likelihood is that we'll take our matter to the Constitutional Court on direct access. And the relief that we are going to seek at court is relief which effectively brings closure to all the disputes that have been taking place amongst Bakgatla affairs. There are so many cases at the Mafikeng High Court of and concerning Bakgatla Kgafela and these mafia groups. So we intend to bring an application, the end result of which should be that, 1, Baloyi Commission report recommendations must be implemented according to the law. The administrator must come back. The forensic investigation must come back. Both must come back to complete their work, which has been clearly delineated in the commission report as to what the forensic must do, what the administrator must do. 3, we must have a functional traditional council of Bakgatla Kgafela. It's been outstanding for a long time. That gap of a functional traditional council has been allowed to become gaping, a yawning, gaping gap, for the very reason that when there's no authority, the mafia can go amok on our inheritance. So we have to have a fully functional traditional council. Last year in December, I announced the 60% quota of the traditional council, consisting of a Kgosi and members from the royal houses and the Khosana of Bakgatla. I'll refer you, listener, to that speech and to the names which I announced. What the Premier ought to have done after I had written him a letter and he heard that announcement was simply to comply. We wouldn't be where we are right now with the current mess and morass which the Premier has created, culminating in the interdict of 3 days ago, if the Premier had simply obeyed the law and offered respect to us. So that Traditional Council must be in place. And we intend to go to the Constitutional Court to make sure that that happens. Also, there must be a final enforcement of all the interdicts and all the judgments of Mafikeng High Court, which have been given in favor of the tribe against this mafia group, which have been frustrated all these years, as I've explained. We must have some finality to enforcement of these judgments. The rule of law in Northwest must be restored. Gone should be the days when court judgments are not obeyed, because state parties are aiding and abetting the disobedience of those court judgments. That's what we seek to achieve in our application. And much more. The end result being what I've said, that we want finality to all Bakgatla disputes, such that at long last, peace must come upon my people. The pain of injustice that we suffer daily must come to an end. So that's what we intend to do. We intend to file that application. It's a huge application because it takes into account everything that has happened since Baloyi report was issued in 2019 to date. We hope that we shall file before the end of next week. We shall file and serve before the end of next week. So that's what we are doing within our power and within the limits of the law. We intend to vindicate our rights in a court of law. Side by side with that, we intend to engage our adversaries in another court, and it's called the Court of Public Opinion, where I am today. Yes, the Court of Public Opinion. We've already filed our papers in that court, and today's presentation is part of the motion. We will be here in this platform and other platforms on a fortnightly basis, speaking to you, Bakgatla, and speaking to the world who care to listen to our plight, and raising awareness to this injustice that is happening at the hands of the African National Congress. That we have a political party abusing state power to oppress fellow black brothers. Yes, I'll be here talking about these matters on a fortnightly basis until we prevail against the African National Congress, until the African National Congress stops stealing our inheritance, until the African National Congress stops confiscating my throne, until the African National Congress stops abusing my tribe. We'll be here in the Court of Public Opinion drumming this mantra until justice finally arrives for Bakgatla. And as part of that motion in the Court of Public Opinion, I've embarked on a letter campaign. I've written letters to various peoples and organizations in South Africa and around the world. I've written to the Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. That Portfolio Committee is an arm of Parliament. Once I've complained to them, it means that I've complained to Parliament. This thing that I'm sharing with you today, it's in my letter to the Portfolio Committee. And they have responded to say that they will deal with the matter. I've written to the Minister on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. I've written to various political parties in South Africa, asking them to help us prevail upon the ANC to stop stealing our inheritance, to stop confiscating my throne, and to stop abusing our tribe. in whatever way they can as political parties and as organizations to help, we will appreciate it. Because this has gone on far too long. We haven't yet received any response from the political parties we have written to. We have also written to the King of Britain. King to king, I've written to King Charles to raise my concern and ask him to lend a helping hand. We've written to other kings of Africa. We've written to the African Union. We have written to the United Nations. And we're going to continue writing more and more letters to everyone until someone, somewhere in the world, either in Africa, Europe, America, someone somewhere in the world, or someone somewhere within our Milky Way galaxy, or someone somewhere in Andromeda, someone somewhere will hear our call, our clarion call, and lend a helping hand of a brother. Because we face a mighty injustice from a mighty bully who has the power of state and the power of our own money who he has stolen, and the power of murder. That's what we are facing. Isn't it a crisis that this has come to a point where the monarch of a tribe has had to depart from his own tribe? So that letter campaign is carrying on. Someone somewhere will hear us and come to our aid. We've also sensitized the media of South Africa, the print media, and we'll continue sensitizing the media about this injustice. If it means that I have to travel to the world, to America, Europe, Asia, to talk about this and to ask for pressure upon the ANC that the ANC must stop stealing our inheritance, stop confiscating my throne, and stop abusing our people. If it means that we have to travel the world around and do talk shows, we'll do that until this injustice comes to an end. This is the court of public opinion, and the games have begun. The Premier of Northwest, Lazarus Mokgosi, ke rekisa certificate sa bokgosi. Lazarus Mokgosi, ke rekisa certificate sa bokgosi. We demand that he must resign. He must resign forthwith. Because he has caused a mess, a total mess of a very simple thing that we are asking him to do, and we are warning him not to do exactly what he has done. He's caused our people enormous pain, untold proportions of pain. And for that, he must resign. You must resign, sir, if you are hearing me now. He's not fit and proper to occupy any public office. And the facts speak for themselves. Simultaneous with us preparing our urgent application, we are opening a criminal inquiry against Lazarus Mokgosi, ke rekisa certificates of Kgosi. Yes, we are opening a criminal inquiry with the Hawks, a criminal inquiry of corruption, fraud and corruption, misrepresenting the royal family, all of them put together. And we will insist and persist in our insistence that the Premier must be prosecuted for corruption. We are never going to relent on that. That we can assure you, Mr. Premier. Our parting of ways are going to be when we enter the prison doors. That we can assure you. If the Premier of Northwest refuses to resign, we'll call upon the President to withdraw him. For the same reason that he has messed up big time. If the President refuses to withdraw Lazarus Mokgosi, certificate sa Bokgosi, then we'll call upon the President himself to resign. And we'll beat up the mantra of that demand until the President himself resigns. These are the things that we will be on and at for the next 6 months. And if by then we still don't have justice, then it will carry on for the next 6 months to a year, until it carries on even during the local government elections next year. We Bakgatla will not yield to evil. Rather, evil shall yield to us and bow the knee. We Bakgatla shall not yield to evil. Rather, evil shall retreat and bow the knee. That's what's going to happen. And we'll achieve that in the two courts, the court of law and the court of public opinion. So the question, what are you going to do about it? The answer is what I've told you, that's what we're going to do. And we are at it. One last thing I wish to say. And I say this by way of introduction because in the next conversations I'm going to be having with you, this will be very central. Many of you may not know, but you should know henceforth that during the struggle against apartheid, my father, who I've succeeded in 2008, my father, Kgosi Kgolo II, he hosted with impeccable hospitality. He hosted the ANC. Firstly, whilst he was ambassador in America, he hosted ANC members in exile in America. When my father came back from America, from foreign service, and he resumed his functions as Kgosi in Muchudi, from around 1973, right up to 1994 independence, my father continued to host with impeccable hospitality the African National Congress members and other freedom fighters from other groups in Southern Africa. They know him. PAC knows my father. ANC knows my father. Honorable Comrade Thabo Mbeki speaks about these things. He speaks about Kgosi Thabo Mbeki. So imagine this. Imagine this and hold this imagination in your mind until the next conversation we have next week or in the next 2 weeks. My father hosts these people in Muchudi as refugees. He hosts them in his house in Muchudi. He holds the ammunition. He keeps the ammunition and helps them distribute it. Imagine that risk. What a huge risk a man has to take upon himself and his family. But that's what he did for the African National Congress. Right up till 1994, my father hosted them. Mandela knew my father, and he appreciated my father very, very well. Now, after somebody has hosted you that way, and you decide that after his death, you are going to steal from his tribe and steal his throne, confiscate his throne, and give it to another person so that the robbery of Kgosi Kgolo's tribe can carry on unabated. What kind of people do that? Repaying love, hospitality with crass ingratitude. What kind of people do that? You need to ask yourself that question. What kind of people repay love and hospitality with crass ingratitude? Crass ingratitude to a point of stealing from Kgosi Kgolo's children and grandchildren, stealing Kgosi Kgolo's throne from his sons and grandchildren. Because as it is now, I had given the premier instruction to issue a certificate of recognition to my son, Matshego, who is Kgosi Kgolo's grandchild. But they take it from Matshego and give it to Nyala John Molefe Pilane. What kind of people do that? You need to ask yourself and hold this image in your mind until our next conversation. But it gets even much more interesting if we are to learn that the current president of South Africa, he's married to my auntie. The first lady is my auntie, my mother's direct cousin. It's true, you can research those facts for yourself, that the first lady is my mother's cousin, her brother is my uncle. But they're all ANC. And ANC is prepared to bring a rift in families, not only from my paternal side, but even in my maternal side. Because you should ask yourself this question: if that is so, why has it been so difficult for the president to see me, to consult with me, despite me having asked to see him, despite me having asked to be handheld to see him? He has not seen me since I came to South Africa in 2012. And apparently he refuses to see me because we have letters from our lawyers and the response is not satisfactory. So what kind of people do that? People who are your family, yet they abet and abet and support a grave injustice upon their brethren. We say charity begins at home, but that charity does not begin at home. It's all over the world, but not at home. We'll carry on with this topic. We'll expand upon it in our next conversation. Our next conversation is only going to be an update on what I've shared with you today. It's a continuing conversation. Let me let you know, my tribe, my people, that where I am right now, I'm safe. I'm enjoying hospitality of an Afrikaner family. I'm being cared for right now by an Afrikaner family, not a black family, but an Afrikaner family. It's them who are taking care of me in my current state of distress. I hope to visit Mushudi on the 21st May this year. But until then, I'll remain safe where I am, and I'll speak to you in this platform to update you on the developments that concern you and your asset. And I want to remind you that these assets don't belong to me alone. They are yours. They are your property, your inheritance, jointly owned by Bakgatla Kgafela residing in Botswana and Bakgatla Kgafela residing in Moruleng. It's your property, and we must all stand fast to push back all the vultures who steal our inheritance. We must not be divided by the weight of tyranny. Instead, the weight of tyranny must bring us closer together, bound like a bundle of sticks held together, where together you cannot break that bundle, but individually you can break the stick. We must stand steadfast in our resolve to vindicate what is ours. The end result of it being that everything, and I say everything that has been stolen from Bakgatla, will be restored to Bakgatla. Every penny which this mafia group has stolen, we are going to recover it. It's going to be paid. It will be paid by the government of the Republic of South Africa, and the government may recover that from the African National Congress. And we intend to roll with that journey for the next 5 to 10 years. Ultimately, we will get a judgment and we'll execute our judgment. So with that, Bakgatla bethu, I wish you well. I wish you well. And give you confidence that we shall prevail against our adversaries. We prevailed against Motlotle. We have prevailed against Paul Kruger. We survived Paul Kruger. We survived Motlotle. We survived Paul Kruger. We survived Isang. We survived Tidimane. We have survived Nyalala. We have survived Seretse Khama in Botswana and the Botswana Democratic Party. We will survive this mafia. We'll survive it. We'll prevail. Thank you very much for listening and have a great day. Bokhabu mafokwa kajeku antsijalo ke tsaore la utlwile. Ha go tle go re ke tlatse sepehela kwa ntleng ga go shabisa. Ke re e bolotse Bakgatla e bolotse. A modimo a nne le lona. Boitlheleng ke bua le lona gape beke e tlang kgotsa dibeke tse 2 3 tse di tla tlang. Se dibelo.